Hey guys, happy Fluid Fridays. I've been wanting to try out a dipped pour for a while now, so I thought this would be a great opportunity, have some fun, and I'm sort of just gonna do it my own way and sort of feel my way through this. I've not done a dipped pour before, so I'm going to start out. I always start out when I've not done something beforehand. I start out on a smaller canvas or board. Today I'm going to use just an 8x8 thin wrapped little canvas. That way when I work on smaller pieces, I can sort of tweak it and see what I would have done differently, what I would change before I go on, of course, to a bigger piece. So I have some black and white already mixed that I standardly keep for my pours, and I also have some, this is mostly Liquitex. This is actually the copper in golden, so this is the iridescent copper in golden, and the rest is Liquitex. This is the heavy body in this, and this is another lighter blue that I'm just gonna throw in there. I'm gonna go ahead and mix these in just with some Floetrol and maybe a couple drops of water. I'm not gonna be using any sort of silicone for this one. I'm just gonna go Floetrol and maybe a couple drops of water and then just see how it goes. I have my work surface covered with parchment paper, and this is shiny side up, and this will be for the dipping process. So I also, once this piece is dipped, I have ready to go a tray, one of my dollar store trays lined with my standard yogurt cups that I have for pouring, and I have that all leveled off and ready to add that canvas to, so it can do its drippy thing after I'm done dipping it. It has a place to set up and dry in peace. This is completely eyeballed how much Floetrol and water I add to the paint. And I know a lot of people want exact measurements, but it really depends on the paint itself and the paint brand, and then the paint, what is it? Is it golden fluid? Is it golden heavy body? And the same with Liquitex. Is it more of a heavy body, which is very thick? Is it the thinner Liquitex that's almost ready to pour? There's several variables that depend on how much Floetrol and water that I go ahead and add to each paint. I don't want it so thin that all my pattern is gonna run off. And that's good to note. If you get it too thin, of course the pattern is all going to run right off of your canvas once it dries, and all of that great pattern that you saw in the beginning of your design, the next day you're going to go in and it's completely gone. So I don't want it so thin that that's going to happen, and it kind of just goes by getting used to it. And you can always pour over it if something happens and it goes too thin, and the next day you walk in and it's not anything like you wanted it to be, then of course you can always just wait till it completely dries and pour right over it, so there's no waste. Okay, so these are pretty good, but I'm gonna go ahead and add just a couple drops of water with a little dropper, and then I'll be ready to mix the paint. Okay, and I've been kind of excited to play around with this because I think I'll be able to change the design and maybe even use it on a couple other things other than just the one 8x8 canvas. And so I have a couple things ready to go if I have extra. I have a couple ideas for further down the road. And so I kind of just want to get a feel for how the canvas is going to react to the dipping. Okay, so starting off, I like quite a bit of negative space, whether it's white or black. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with an entire pattern. I'm just gonna go an entire pattern of white here. And then we'll add some color. Okay, so here is some of the coaster pieces after the pour. They're still wet and drying, and I will say that much more of the paint is utilized than when I do a pour and it all sort of runs off. This would also be good to use as when it does run off of the pour. If you're doing a pour, straight pour, and it runs off, it would be a good to make these little coasters in what runs off instead of wasting that paint, so that would be a good idea too. I did get a variation of pattern, not quite as much as if I'm doing a pour, but I can still play around with that, and there might be just, you know, hundreds of different patterns that you can achieve. These, to me, they all seem sort of similar, but I didn't really do anything extravagantly different for one to the other. I did play around a little bit with re-dipping and dipping also just certain areas if I wanted a darker spot in the composition or a lighter spot, lighter area, or some negative space. I sort of played around with re-dipping the piece, so we'll see how that comes out, dipping it second, even third time to get more of the composition of outcome that I wanted. So played around with that. Got 6 coasters and 2 8x8s. So we will see how they dry when they set up, and I will take pictures of them for you at the end of this video. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and we will see you again soon. Happy Fluid Fridays. Bye, guys.